All right. Yes, Zoom is acting up today. Hopefully, everybody can see everything here. And then, of course, this will go on our website, and I'll have a resource at the end with where I got my information. And so you can have the resources for yourself to refer back to and go back and check it out anytime. My disclaimer is I don't know everything about gardening, and there's no way I could tell you everything about gardening because everybody's got a different space that they use for gardening. They're in different elevations. But I want to make sure that you walk away today being able to read a seed packet and have some resources to look at to when the best time for you to do some things are. So we'll look at growing zones, looking at the seed packets and breaking that down. If you should do direct planting or if transplants are best. We'll talk about succession planting, extending the growing season, and then we'll look at some specific examples. I have some charts and stuff in here, and I have some nice resources to go back later. But there's so many. We'll just look at a few things so that I can make sure you feel comfortable looking at it and what you're looking at. And then we'll touch on winter gardening too. So we have our Master Gardener plant sale coming up in May. You'll definitely want to come to that if you want to go ahead and just pick up some items that you can harden off and get put into the ground right away. You'll be able to come in and see us. We'll have annuals, perennials, veggies, grapes and berries and things like that. So save the date. It's on the 24th this year, and it's 8 to 3 at the Cowles County Fairgrounds in Longview. So let's look at some different things we'll need to look at is when is it going to frost at my place? So Washington, Oregon, probably most people that are logged in today are from Washington, Oregon, and you can see that it's going to vary from which end of the state what your frost zone is going to be. So if you're going to be kind of over on the west side here, then we're going to be closer to zone 8, and on the east, closer to zone 6. So knowing when the first and last average frost is important so that you know when you're going to get if you're direct sowing or if you're putting transplants in, when to get those in. And then I'm going to mention this about 4 times in this show. Think about getting a little journal so you can keep track of when things happened this year. When you think the last frost was, you can notate that. When you put things in and how well they did, or if something happened and a cold snap came in, it's a good way to kind of keep track of what's really kind of going on in your yard. And then this is our plant hardiness zones. This is probably pretty familiar. It's on all of these websites. I'm going to have at the end, the Agricultural Research Service puts out the plant hardiness zone. This is the most recent one I could get, and I think it's the one we used last year too. But it's going to show what type of plants and what they're going to tolerate depending on the area that you're living in. And it's talking about the annual temperatures on that right side, just the extreme maximum and minimum temperatures. And this is our heat zone map. So some zones are going to have a longer periods of time where they're going to be warm and cool, and what the kind of just another way to look at what the heat zone is going to look like in your area. So there are some crops that do need to have warmer temperatures to thrive in some zones. They might need intervention. So just kind of think about when you're considering planning your space. You might need to have something where you're covering some things. If you're getting started, if you don't have space inside to start some things, but some of the things can go out a little bit earlier, and you may need to just kind of think about making sure that you can protect them while they're outside. So soil temperature is important too. You want to make sure that you're putting your seeds and your seedlings in when they're going to thrive and be comfortable. There's a lot of, thermometers for compost and soil out there. So if you have that, you can kind of see what's going on at your place. So every garden is unique. So just remember too that what's going on at your place might not be happening like up at a higher elevation. So just want to look at some specific examples and kind of have you look at this little chart with me. So let's look at Swiss chard. So it's going to germinate at 40 degrees, but optimal temperature range for normal germination is going to be a little warmer, 50 to 85 degrees. Max temp would be 95 degrees, which is still kind of hot. Peppers will germinate at 60, but optimum temperature range is 65 to 95 with a maximum temperature of that topping out at 95. But if the soil temperature is not at your minimum, plant growth can have some issues. It could be slow to germinate, take its time developing, and it might keep it from taking in nutrients, and it would increase its susceptibility to disease because it's weak. So you'll notice on here too that lettuce, onion, parsnip, and spinach, it'll germinate once your soil hits at 35, but optimal germination for that is much warmer and closer to 70. So seeds may germinate, but it doesn't mean that they're going to grow well. On beets, carrots, and peas, they want 40 degrees before they'll germinate. So you'll need to keep track of that. Corn and tomatoes, 50 degrees if you're direct planting seeds before they germinate. But for our summer, we would be recommending starting your seedlings inside for your tomatoes. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So the base temperatures here, anything below that, if it falls down below that too, all your plant growth is going to stop. We don't want our plants to stop growing. It puts a lot of stress on the plants. And if you're planting them close to these base temperatures and then they go into hibernation and then start again and stop again, again, it's going to put a lot of stress on your plants. So there's a lot of seed packs out there. A lot of places are putting out the seeds and then they have some different things. This is just a sample of what I have here that I'm going to be using in all the different packages. They kind of all look a little bit different. So it's going to, you want to make sure that your plants are going to ripen in a decent time, the days to maturity, sorry, for our area. Seed packets do have a lot of excellent information. Most include a lot of the same information. The layout might be different. And then like you'll want a lot of zone 8 seeds because they're going to be shorter days to maturity and they're generally more successful in our zone here. So let's break it down. I'm a big fan of the seed packets that have just a little bit more information than others. So I do kind of, there's a lot of great resources. Botanical Interest is one that I like to use, but I'll have some examples of some great seeds that we can use up here too that are really great and everyone's successful with. So your seed pack is going to have your description of the product that you're harvesting and talk a little bit about just kind of a general overview, right? This is telling you that it's 30 days, you can have the small ones or grow them bigger in 40 days, and then how much that packet should cover in your garden space. And then this is going to show, usually these packets are going to show when to sow outside and when to start inside. And it will tell you, here's when you should do it and what the temperature should be. And if you're going to do succession planting, that's what this sowing every 2 weeks up to 8 to 10 weeks means. That means you'll want to make sure you have some space, get your first row or two in, and then wait another couple of weeks and then put some more in so that you can enjoy those all summer long and not have a giant crop of turnips all at one time. And then, of course, this says not recommended. Turnips are a hardy seed. You can just put them in your garden outside. And then the left side has more of the kind of the technical information. So days to emerge, it's your germination time. That means when that seedling pops through, and that's when you're going to see it break through the soil, that's your germination time. How low you do need to plant your seed, how deep, and then how far apart they should be, and then how long what your maturity date is. So all of this information really important. I would say I usually start with a list of what I want to plant. for this year. We're going to be limited on space this year. We moved to a new home, and we're just going to be doing. I bought stock takes, and that's what I used for some of my stuff at my other place. But I had all raised beds in my yard. It was absolutely almost all garden. And this new place, we just haven't had time. So I'm looking at my space and the time things are going to be coming up and when I want to be around to pick it because I don't want to be on vacation when it's going to come up. So we want to choose seed suppliers who specialize in our area and climate. Examples of some really good seeds for up here: Ed Hume, Nichols Garden Nursery, Salt Spring Seeds, Territorial Seed Company. They also have a lot of excellent resources on their website as well. On some of the stuff we're going to see later is charts from their website. West Coast Seeds, Wild Garden Seeds, Gardener's Basics, Botanical Interests, and Outside Pride. So you've probably seen a lot of these brands already at the greenhouses or at places where they're selling seeds. So a big important note about tomatoes. Days to maturity is different from your other seeds. Your days to maturity actually starts at transplanting, not direct seeding. So we're also doing a workshop here coming up called How to Grow a Ripe Tomato in the PNW. So we do have last year's is going to be on the website. I'll have the resource at the end where you can go look at last year's and then definitely join us for the next one. The tomato, not everyone loves tomatoes, but tomatoes are the star of the show on a lot of meals. It's a base product for a lot of the sauces and soups and other things that you eat every week. So transplanting versus seeding. Is your garden ready? Getting your gardens ready for any of that is something you need to consider. So if you deal with all this in the fall, get your cover crops in, get your stuff all prepared, and whatever treatment you decide you're doing at your place in the fall, we typically do wood chips on our garden, and then we cover with a tarp so it'll keep it from being soggy. I mean, if you kind of wait until it dries up, then you might be waiting a while because we get a lot of rain out here. So if you keep it covered if possible, that'll kind of help keep it from being soggy when you're getting ready to get everything in. So if you do everything in the fall, then you're going to be ready to jump in and do the fun stuff in the spring. So we got direct seeding and we have seed starting. So direct seeding, we got some advantages. You're planting them once, unless you're doing, succession planting. There's no extra weeks of caring for transplants. You're not limited by greenhouse space if you don't have a space to start some stuff inside. Again, you can come to our plant sale and pick up your starts and get them in the garden and just enjoy. Less effort, and you don't have to haul anything out of the greenhouse out to your garden to plant. And then some plants definitely prefer direct seeding. Some disadvantages: you have less control over the weather and the climate and what's kind of happening, especially with the early growing period. And then we do have a shorter growing season than some zones. I'm from Iowa. I've been out here 10 years, and the growing season at home where I'm from is a lot longer than out here. So something that I had to learn over the first year or two I was out here is just really kind of getting to know the seeds out here. And that's one of the reasons I joined the Master Gardener program, because I wanted to learn everything I could about the difference between there and here. And that zone map didn't make a lot of sense to me there because I could just pretty much get out there in the spring and harvest stuff all year, almost till the fall. But here, I mean, there is winter gardening options, but our growing season is shorter for the warmer vegetables that we need to have that heat for. So if you're transplanting your seed starts, it does extend your season. You can get your plant starts outside, and then you can do some seeds to get some and round there and keep it going. And grow varieties with longer days to maturity. You start them inside, get them outside a little bit later, then you're going to be able to have them enjoy being outside and doing their thing, and have those longer seeds, the ones that take longer to mature, you'll be able to get them out and get them harvested and have them already have a really good start. You can use succession planting to get more food out of a smaller
His
space.
brother Buck works at the brewery too, in some capacity.
And it could save you money too. I mean, if you have plants that you get out there and then something happens to them, you've got the plants that you've already started and you know they're going to be safe. Disadvantage, you do need heat and light. I mean, you can probably use a sunny window, but overhead lighting is a better option. The space is needed unless you have a greenhouse. So succession planting, one of my favorite things in the world. I There's a lot of stuff here that you can do over and over and have continuous crop production all spring, summer, and fall, and possibly into winter. So green onions, lettuce, peas, radishes, carrots, they all have a fairly short, to me, maturity time. Um, and then you can get your stuff in, and then you wait 2 to 3 weeks and get some more stuff in, but you'll want to make sure that you leave your space there. So every so many weeks you can start new seeds, and you can have smaller crops instead of having a whole bunch of things at one time. So it's just some timelines to consider. You can plant weekly or do 4 plantings. Just we're looking at, I know radishes, I'm on the radishes. I love radishes. Not everyone loves radishes. So if you plant each week, April 1st through May 8th, you're going to be harvesting radishes April 24th, May 8th, June 1st, June 15th, or split those up if you want 2 week intervals. Peas take about 60 days. So if you do 4 plantings between April 10th and June 29th, you'll be harvesting them between June 9th and September 18th. And then broccoli is 50 to 60 days. If you do a couple of plantings, they're pretty good sized plants. So if you do a couple of plantings like April 10th and June 30th, you'll be harvesting June 9th to June 30th and September 1st to September 22nd. It depends on which one that you do. And I do like to keep track. I have a notebook that I use of which seeds did the best and how everything looked and how long it took to actually mature. Everything's pretty close to what the seed pack says for my area. So this is from the Territorial Seeds website. Alice shared this with me, and I hadn't seen this, but this is absolutely wonderful. So it looks like a lot of information. So just take a second to look at the legend. So the green is going to be when you're going to direct sow into the ground. And the orange line is when you need to be sowing these items indoors. The black line is transplanting. And then it'll show if you need to cover it. It looks like artichokes are going to be the tender plants here. And then looking at the soil temperature for germination, seed depth to plant, how much you want to thin your plants and how much space you want and how much space you need between those rows so they're thriving and not crowding each other out. And then your harvest. So it's this kind of a neat little chart, and I printed one out for me. The rest of the vegetables, everything's in alphabetical order. But here you can see the okra is going to need cover too when you transplant it. But keep track of those temperatures in your area too. I mean, sometimes it is going to be something you want to watch for in case we have kind of a late frost. There's a lot of really good resources out there too. I do have a small garden library. I have all these books, and I have a few more. Ed Humes also puts out a little garden almanac every year. It's just a little pocketbook. It gives your month by month guide on when to plant things and when to transplant and when to harvest and some other really great garden tips. It has everything that you saw in those 2 charts is in this little book. And I have one that I've had for a long time, but I might need to update it. So we've got some cool weather crops. Just some examples. So we got broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, kale, and radishes. Um, you can start your transplant end of March, get them out in May, and or direct seed in May. Optimum soil temperature 50 to 60 for broccoli, cabbage 50 to 90, etc. And then tips for the brassicas. After you cut the main head off, oftentimes there's like those little shoots that come out. If you prefer full heads of broccoli, space them out and do some succession planting and plant some new ones every week. And then cabbage, cauliflower, kale start new plants every few weeks. And then radishes starting a few every few weeks is better than 50 all at one time. And your cucurbits, your cucumbers, pumpkins, squash, muskmelons, watermelons, and zooks. Maximum optimum soil temperature cucumbers and summer squash, winter squash, pumpkins. When to put your transplants out, when to get them out. Beginning in June, you can direct seed. I do both. I do like to pick up plant starts if I didn't start any inside. And then I also do some direct seed as well because I'm sure all of my neighbors love zucchini. But we do a lot of the shorter season zucchini so that we can share with our community center. So tomatoes do require some additional steps. So when you start your tomato seeds, if you have a heated greenhouse, 50 to 70 days before you're going to put them in the ground. Seedlings without a greenhouse you do need more heat. It's going to have to be warmer. Make sure you're between a little bit hot, a little bit warmer. 75 to 95 days. It's going to take a little bit longer for that. If I've started seeds in my house, I keep my house at 69 degrees. So if I don't have them in something like a little tiny greenhouse kit you can buy online or at Lowe's or Home Depot, then they take a lot longer to mature. And then they're typically 50 to 90 days. But for like your plants that you're gonna be getting in the ground, lower elevation, if you put them in by May 21st, you'll probably be harvesting tomatoes between July and August. Higher elevation, get them in June, around June 7th, harvest in July to September. And if we have a late spring and the soil's not warm enough, everything might be pushed out. You might end up having to put stuff out later on outside. And so we do have a lot of tomatoes. We always have tons and tons of wonderful tomato plants ready for you to harden off and put out. So if you want to just go ahead and have that immediate satisfaction, then that's a great way to go. Tomato seedlings do have to be up potted to larger and larger pots. Their root systems develop quickly. They need proper nourishment at different levels of maturity. So I definitely want to make sure that you know that they need a little bit more time to get ready to go outside. Winter gardening, one of my favorites. I personally, I do carrots, parsnips, I do kale, I do some cauliflower and broccoli a little bit. This is something that you can plant seed, transplants, if anything you get out in early August. And then you can get your garlic in, and then some of these things you can plant earlier, but you can look at your harvest dates though. February to April for broccoli, November to March for your winter cabbage. All of these delicious fresh things you can have in the wintertime. So it's something you can do. I don't cover I do mulch on my stuff, and I haven't had any issues with anything, but kind of watching that protection if you're at a little bit higher elevation. So we want to talk about hardening off your plant starts. So if you're starting your own plants or you buy plant starts, you'll want to harden them off. So when you purchase your plants from us at the Meister Garden plant sale, or you're doing them in your house, or a friend's giving you some that they started, they're needing to be hardened off before you get them out to the ground, or they're going to experience shock. So typically anything that you see that's outside for sale has already been hardened off, and that's why it's outside. I did talk to two of the greenhouses up the street from me. I live in Vancouver, so I did talk to a couple of greenhouses that are close to me here, and everything they put outside is already hardened off, and that should be the same for any other resources that have plant starts already outside. So you'll want to get them outdoors, but you'll want to protect them from direct sunlight, maybe 1 or 2 hours on your first day. Bring him inside, put him in your basement, your garage, your house, as long as they have some sunlight. And then you can use a cold frame if you have a cold frame. You'll increase the amount of outdoor exposure each day. You want to gradually acclimate the seedlings to increased amounts of dappled sun and wind. If it's really windy or it's really cold, don't put them outside. But after several days, you can increase the exposure to more sun. And the key again, do this gradually. If temperatures are over 50 during the day and night, you can leave them outside overnight after the first 5 days, but check them frequently because the little pots they're in, they could dry out pretty fast. So you'll want to make sure that you water well. And then when you get ready to plant your plants, I try to find a kind of an overcast day if I can and get everything in so nothing gets too crazy with a shock. And then I do water them very well after getting them in and then just kind of keep an eye on them. Something that does, I have had questions, I know other master gardeners have too, about if they, if they are getting stuff going and in their house and then they're getting it outside, it's not making it. You got to do the hardening off process. Everything that we do, all of the presentations that you see, the workshops and this one are located on our website. We have our Learn With Us section here. And then this video is going to be in the vegetable gardening section, and you'll be able to access that and all of the resources.